Hey, it's Breaking the News Plus on this Tuesday night, and yes, it's July, and seems like a long way from 2026, but elections are going to be top of mind in the next couple months for that 2026 midterm election. So as we talk politics, I'm inviting our friend Republican State Senator Julia Coleman back to the show, who this morning said, "I'm not running for the U.S. Senate seat to be vacated by Democratic Senator Tina Smith." Welcome back to the show, Julia.
Always great to be back.
Senator Coleman, number one, nice tie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Number two, why not run for the U.S. Senate?
It was a very personal decision. I will never forget, I'm sitting there in the Capitol and my phone starts buzzing nonstop. And I think one of two things: a kid's sick at school or something's going on. And it turned out Senator Tina Smith decided not to seek re-election. And a lot of people suggested that I think about it. And I've thought about it since January. And I was 9 months pregnant with my first baby when I decided to run for state senate. And my whole motivation was I can be that mom that sits up at night pacing back and forth thinking about the state of the world, or I can be that mom that rolls up her sleeves and does something about it. And so I announced I was running, and a week later I had my son, and it's all been about his generation. What are they going to inherit in policy and in partisan politics and in the state? And I was looking at them. I have 3 sons now, and just thought, if I'm really committed to the next generation, I also have to be committed to these 3 members of that generation. And that means being here in Minnesota, not in Washington, D.C. I think my number one job as a mother is to raise them to be good people. And that's really hard to do when you're across the country.
Fair enough. That's as good as answer as they come. Well, in your announcement to not run, you talked about your oldest son, saying he has a desire to live on Summit Avenue. Julia, there's a very specific residence on Summit Avenue that belongs to the governor of the state, whoever she or he may be, although we've never had a she. Are you going to run for governor?
I never say no to future opportunities that I am not positive about, because when you sign up for public service, you sign up for it maybe not looking how you think. Sometimes that public service means joining your local Lions Club, and sometimes it could mean rising to the moment if your state or country calls you in a different form. And I think it's too soon to know what that moment needs, but it's not completely ruled out.
Not completely ruled out. See, most politicians will say no, even if it's like an 80% yes. So I appreciate that. We are at a time in state politics. We have a 2-term Democratic governor who ran for the vice presidency and now it seems to be testing the waters, leaning towards, he will run for a 3rd term, though that's not been successful by most that have tried. And so the Republican Party may have an opportunity here to run against a sitting governor and get an office back that it hasn't had in years. So if it's not you, who do you think the Republicans should put up against, let's say, Governor Walz if he runs again?
I think that Republicans need to look for somebody that is probably more of a moderate. We definitely need to reclaim some of the ground that we've lost in the suburbs. I mean, you look at the circle around the Twin Cities, the blue circle, it has certainly expanded and expanded and expanded. And I think Republicans have a tendency to dig in their heels instead of think, how can we evolve and reach these voters? And so I would hope that they would look for somebody who considers himself a moderate and, reaches their hands out across the aisle. But one thing that I'm very curious how your viewers would reflect. I travel around the state a lot, and whether it's while I'm shopping for a motorcycle or I'm at a Twins game or I'm on the golf course, as soon as I strike up conversations with people and they find out what I do for a living, they want to talk politics, and which is great because I live for that. And I have heard the idea floated several times of the desire for a bipartisan ticket.
Ooh.
And it's not something that I haven't heard any names floated for it or anything like that, but I'm very curious if that is what Minnesota needs in this moment. And I've never seen it done. I'm not even sure if it's possible, but it's something that makes me go, I wonder if we could benefit from that.
Okay, I'm stunned into speechlessness. I've never heard of such a thing. Also, is it possible? Should be possible, in my opinion. If it's not possible, make it possible. I like what you're thinking. That's interesting that voters said that to you too. So to me, that signals a strong desire for some calm,
I
shared
think so
ideas.
too. You look at the blue circle and then the purple ring around it, and then the rest of the state is red. You look at the tied House, the one seat majority in the Senate. I mean, we have 201 legislators in the state of Minnesota, 101 Democrats, 100 Republicans. It doesn't get more bipartisan and divided than that. And does it have to be a bad thing, or is there an opportunity here for us?
You know, and it's something that's just been, I know, on your mind, probably your heart, my mind, my heart, since the assassination of Speaker Emerita Hortman and her husband, Mark. Senator Hoffman, thankfully, is out of the hospital now, starting his journey to rehabilitation, and we hope a clean bill of health, at least physically. We know mentally he'll have a long way for what happened. But it strikes me, Senator Coleman, today Speaker Demuth wrote a beautiful opinion piece in the Star Tribune about what leadership in Minnesota could look like from here, talking about how can we center the voices that work together and not just the loudest voices who want to outshout the other side. And she talked about her relationship with Speaker Emerita Hortman and that they were able to do that. And I just think of that as you talk about that bipartisan ticket, we kind of had it in the shared power agreement with Demuth and Hortman.
I agree. I was reading that piece earlier this morning, and I think a lot of people were sitting, legislators at least, were sitting in that Hortman funeral and thinking about the amazing legacy that she left behind, and taking a kind of hard look at ourselves, going, would I have done the same? Would I have had the same legacy, or even come close to it? And while she, agree with her or not, she was clearly the most influential Speaker of the House we've ever had. And I think that's going to happen after her passing as well. Because a lot of people just texting other lawmakers and getting together and talking about everything, it has been eye opening and certainly a reflection point.
Yeah, and you and I talked about that the last time we chatted on Breaking the News Plus, that kind of where do we go from here? And it was refreshing, to see Speaker Demuth's piece, although I would expect nothing less from the way that she led both her caucus, her party, and worked with Speaker Emerita Hortman to write what she did today. But it's been, in the passage of time, as more tragedies strike across the country, some can kind of lose the will to be bipartisan. But it seemed like she dug in again. And of course, my first thought was to contact her people saying, is Speaker Demuth running for governor? And so my second thought is Senator Coleman going to be on her ticket. Any talks of that?
That would be news to me, and I am Speaker Damus' biggest fan. I constantly feel like I'm fangirling over her when I text her, because she does lead with that grace and that integrity, and certainly could be one of the names floated to meet the moment Minnesota is really needing as we're reeling here. And I'm glad she's in the spot she's in as well.
I think as we move forward too, because it is coming to decision time, both for Governor Walz on if you're going to run, because it takes a lot to run for governor, and that comes up in 2026 in November for Minnesota voters to decide. And I'm curious at your thoughts about if, as we get official names when they come of who's going to run, and we know that Kendall Qualls is running on the Republican ticket for sure. Do you think that Governor Walz and whoever comes out of the endorsement process for the Republican Party will remain to that somewhat vow, at least that Walz took, that this is going to be a clean race, because the wounds are here in Minnesota about what damaging rhetoric can do?
I certainly hope that is the case. I also think, as we talked about prior, if there's some credible third party candidate or some sort of bipartisan ticket, that holds the other two sides accountable as well. And then we talked about kind of the public's accountability in this, and that comes from the two bases. They need to stop demanding purity. They need to stop demanding that we be those loud voices that Speaker Demuth was talking about, and start demanding results. And are you getting things done that you said you were going to get done? Are you playing nice in the sandbox? And so it is, as we spoke about earlier, kind of everyone rowing that boat in the same direction and meeting that moment for Minnesota.
And I want to go back to what you said you heard from voters. I mean, X is not the real world. And if you just live on X and you see what people say with their partisan bent, not just electeds, but the general public, you think we live in a world that demands that we have sharp nails all the time going at the other side. But it sounds like what you're hearing when people were talking about a bipartisan ticket is that's not what's happening in the real world. Again, hopefully for the majority of Minnesotans, that they want a functioning government where two sides work together. And again, they saw it in the most divided legislature in history.
It also pushes people out of the process. So many people say, I don't pay attention to politics. It's too mean. It's too nasty. And if that got tempered down a little bit, I would hope we would see more civic engagement. And I can't tell you how many people, even in my district, as they think about running for House or something along those lines, decide not to do it because it's so nasty. And these are good people that would make excellent leaders. And so there is this moment in Minnesota I'm hoping we can capture because I think it could impact the entire state in such a positive way.
You feel good with your decision to kind of step back from the Senate race but stay present in the state Senate?
I do. I hate flying. And so, but my son is determined to get a dirt bike for his birthday in October. And so I'm spending all week teaching him how to ride a bike without training wheels. And that feels amazing to me, and I would never want to miss out on that.
That makes sense. Senator Coleman, always a pleasure. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Thanks for having me again.
We'll see you again soon, I'm sure. Senator Julia Coleman talking to us today about state politics and her decision not to run for the upcoming vacant Senate seat of Tina Smith. See you later.